I was long gone from WWE when I started talking to TNA, and they had been trying to reach me from the time I left WWE, and I really had no interest in being back in the industry. Finally, after so many phone calls and so many emails and so many DMs on Twitter, Bubba Ray Dudley and Taz and Tommy Dreamer came to me and said, just talk to them. Hear what they have to say. My concept with TNA was the Dana White concept with UFC. Give me the ball and let me run with it. And if I fail, I fail. And if I don't, I don't. But you're going to have to let me take a stab at this. Not like New Jack stabs white people, but let me take a try at this. WWE had all these legends, all these Hall of Famers. They had an established product. They had a certain way. I was going to take TNA in a completely different direction. And unfortunately for a lot of friends of mine, that direction meant get rid of all the legends, make it a young guys promotion. At the time also, WWE had fired Daniel Bryan. And my protege in ECW, who now runs the company called Evolve, Gabe Sapolsky was very tight with Daniel Bryan because he gave Daniel Bryan his first big break. So one of my plans was to bring Daniel Bryan into TNA at the time, and he was quite willing to do so, as he wrote in his own book. And the whole concept was going to be build it around the young guys, build it around a more MMA style, just give it a completely different feel than the WWE light product that they were presenting back in 2010 and 2011, which is when I ended up talking with them. They didn't want to get rid of the old guys. They just didn't. Sorry, we don't want to do it. They had Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, no knock on Eric Bischoff this time. They had Sting, they had Mick Foley, they had Ric Flair, they had Kevin Nash, they had the Dudley Boys, they had Rob Van Dam, they had Jeff Hardy. They had 10 people who were considered legends. And how can you build around the young guys when you're giving all this TV time to people who, and I wasn't going to be on TV either, by the way. That wasn't part of my plan because I was over 40 and I didn't want to be on television anymore. That was it. It had to be young guys, had to be a young crew, had to be new upcoming guys, and one or two people like Daniel Bryan who had established their name already, but still, he hadn't really exploded on the scene yet. He was still considered a new guy, a young guy. And they didn't want to do it. They couldn't grasp the concept that these legends, one by one, would all leave them at some point. And they just figured, no, but we have them, and why would we want to get rid of them? Because the public's not buying your product, so let's sell them a different product. And they just wouldn't do it. And I wasn't willing to compromise what I believed was going to work, because I wasn't going to come back into this industry and fail. It wasn't, I already felt that I had failed with the new ECW. I couldn't stop WWE from doing to the legacy of that brand what they did to the legacy of that brand. I felt that I hoard out the legacy of the brand and myself by performing on that television show, because what they did to the name of ECW was terrible to me, and it was a nightmare to me, and I didn't want to relive it by getting back into the business only to fail again. So they wouldn't get rid of the legends. I don't want to say the old guys, because I'm an old guy now, and I don't want people to get rid of me because I'm old. So, but if you want to get rid of me because I'm a legend, go right. Hey, you're a legend. Oh, I feel so much better. Thank you. But they wouldn't get rid of the legends, and at the end of the day, I knew it wasn't going to work, and I just didn't do it.
The PWR presents What If? What if John Cena turned heel? What if Chyna became the first woman world heavyweight champion? What if Owen Hart never passed away? What if Magnum TA never got into a car crash? What if Hulk Hogan stayed with the AWA? What if Shawn Michaels signed with WCW? What if WCW won the Monday Night Wars? What if Vince McMahon's WrestleMania failed? What if?
What's going on? there, Reflectionites? What is going on there to the Pedoites? And what is going on to the HAMINites and the solitary confinement PWCites? What is going on to all the ites all over the world? What's going on to the 170 subscribers on the Professor's YouTube channel? And a special shout out, good news for all the HAMINites. Ben Hamin, a successful medical procedure. So, good news out there, TW. So, the stage 4 cancer, like Ben Hamin has heals over strong. So he beat cancer. That's what the news that we got. So just want to say shout outs to Ben Hamin, the man of the HAMIN Media Group at PodBeam.com. He's beating cancer, heals over strong. So send the prayers to Ben and still send those prayers to TW's main man, Jeff. So, keep that good news wheel train going and all that stuff. So with that being said, welcome to the PWR podcast here at the HAMIN Media Group at PodBeam.com. And I'm laughing for a reason, because we are going to change wrestling history. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. But this is going to be a very different what-if scenario, and I'll get into that in a second. But before I do that, I must do my spiel. I must do my gimmick, because I got the grays on my hair and the grays on my eyebrows and the grays on my nose. And you know what? I look down and I'm looking at my toes right now. The dude, pinky toe got a gray hair. What the hell? Pinky toe got a gray hair. TW, this is madness. Why is my pinky toe got a gray hair? Not
Too
good.
old.
I know. 49 doesn't mean I'm, but I'm just saying. I gotta shave it off. That's all it is. But anyway, I'm the effervescent one. I am the studious one. But most importantly, I am the glorious one. The only objective man in this IWC, YWC, and PWC punditry. The only objective man in this Twitterverse. The only objective man in this political hemisphere. And yes, no, I'm not liberal. No, I'm not conservative. I am a centrist. I see things on a balanced level. I keep it a 50-50. I look at it from both sides of the spectrum. Your friend of mine, the Professor Chabelle Cruz, am not here alone. No. But you know what? Quiet is kept right now, Reflectionites. My partner at times a little bit despondent. He's a little bit down right now because the Detroit Pistons got their ass whipped by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And, we were hoping for that big Eastern Conference finals between Detroit and New York in that big kind of feud. It felt like a Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair kind of feud if we had Detroit and New York going in the Eastern Conference finals. But now it turned into Ric Flair versus Barry Howard? I don't know. I'm just saying. But
LeBron Jr. It's LeBron Jr. Harden.
But that's the GOAT. But they need to hit it there. But anyway, he's a little bit despondent, but he's still the conservative liberal. He's still the liberal conservative. He's still the solo idiot. He's still Mr. Wonderful. He's still the iron stomach one. And he is still the undisputed, undeniable Detroit Rock City Universal Heavyweight Champion of the world. Tommy Wonder, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good, and we need to just get this out of the way straight away. I couldn't care less about the Pistons not winning. But, side, I love Big Ray. I do. But he is undeniably the biggest sore winner I've ever seen in the history of watching sports and other people. His team didn't even play the Pistons, and he's making fun of them with memes. And it's like, tell me you didn't want to play the Pistons without telling me you didn't want to play the Pistons. But I turned it on for 2 minutes last night, and I saw James Harden go, like he got uppercutted, and no one touched him. And they still call it a foul. And they got this dumb shit in baseball.
You didn't see the replay. It was John Cena that hit James Harden,
who's not a Piston. So you got basketball and baseball, these stupid new rules where the batter or the catcher can argue a strike or a ball. The NBA, the player can't argue a foul, but he can tell his coach who can argue the foul. And how that foul was not argued, I have no idea. And it's become, to me, the silliest thing in all sports. is an umpire and a manager arguing after an ejection. It is the most fake thing I've ever seen in my life for my entire life. The Pistons coach arguing with the referee is a second place to that. Maybe one day be first place, because I watch these refs and these what are they called? Coaches in the NBA? These coaches and referees argue. There's nobody on the planet that can look at James Harden on the replay and say, yeah, that's very Sidney Crosby-like. There's no way anyone could see that unless they were a Cavaliers fan, and then they'll deny it. And then the baseball last week, the Tigers, the guy was safe at third base by a mile. They did the replay and still said he was out, and the entire place is booing. The coach of the Tigers points at the screen and goes, "It's fucking right there," and then the ump kicked him out of the game. It's such a phony. It's almost like those two sports added that stuff to compete with fighting in the NHL, because that's another thing. Real hockey fans don't give a shit about fighting. It's the fucking fake fans that are on their couch flipping channels. They see a fight, and that's why they leave a hockey game.
Well, wait. Let's be fair. To be fair. Well, hockey has some technology glitches on their own, with pucks going across the line.
I agree.
You know, all that stuff. So it's there too. There's still.
I agree, but it doesn't turn into an argument between a coach and a referee, and the coach getting ejected, and they go chest to chest and argue with each other. And the Pistons coach and the referee last night got damn close to looking like a baseball one. And the guy's like, "You're kidding me, dude." The coach was very composed, which I don't even know his name, by the way. But the referee is looking at him, and I'm like, what in the fuck is he saying with a straight face? But I just don't understand why they couldn't argue it. But every other NBA game I watch, the coach would like to argue the foul. I watched one Pistons, was it Orlando in the first round? They argued a foul, and they won, and they turned it around and gave the other team a foul, and then gave them a technical for arguing that. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? What happened to just playing basketball and the referee's going, foul, no foul, no foul, no foul? And then I watched
replay catches everything now. That's all it is. We get it right. That's the thing.
I understand that, but it's I'm not a baseball guy to begin with, but there's so many people that don't like the stuff that they've done to baseball. I don't think people argue that 25-second box or whatever the hell that thing is, which is like the NBA, which is another NBA thing. The 24-second clock is supposed to start over when the ball hits the rim. I watched Pistons games where both teams hit the rim and the clock doesn't start over. What the fuck is that?
No, that's probably the arena that fucks up with the clock.
Some of the worst people at their jobs are arena scorekeepers.
That is true, but you know,
shot clock
again,
for hockey, terrible.
I will say this for baseball, they got one thing right. They actually sped up the game. The replays,
right? That's what I said. Most people are fine with that one.
Yeah, but the replays, yes. Replays still need to be tweaked and stuff like that. But all sport leagues need their replays to be tweaked. But neither here nor there. I know, TW, if I met you years ago when the Detroit Red Wings were doing their dynasty, you probably would be a sore winner too. So it goes both ways. No, because I firmly believe when I talk shit like that, it damages my team. Like I won't bet on my favorite teams because every time I do, they lose. Do you hear me? Do you hear me talk shit about my Yankees? I don't say nothing. I just keep going. You're a good fan. But Ray, your Yankees, you know how I know your Yankees are in a rough spot? Because all Ray does is talk shit about the Mets. But if the Yankees are winning, all he does is talk about the Yankees. But if he's upset at the Yankees, he talks shit about the Mets. If he's upset at the Giants, he talks shit about the Jets. That's his therapy. Yeah, and if he's upset with I saw him in the first round just shitting all over the Knicks, and now he's shitting on the Pistons, where you're not even playing. It's because he's projecting, is what Ray's doing. He's a sore winner. But before we get talking about our show, I got stuff for Ray. Okay. This is something I never showed people before. I was walking my dogs today, and I thought, the poor 14 people that listen to our show as a podcast and not as a video. It's not 14 people. It's 170 subscribers. That's the YouTube. And you keep saying it's yours. That's why people aren't adding it, because you won't acknowledge it's the show's now. You keep calling it. My people actually, hey, man, you sure this is the right one? This guy's a professor. I'm like, it's the professor's page, but he turned it into the wrestling page. And you still just fucking claim it. Just leave me right in the You're going to get barbershop windowed one day. It's going to happen. My next trip to New York,
fucking professor.
I changed the link to Pro Wrasslin Reflection just because of my
but
name.
You just announced it as your YouTube page, 170 people. It's the Pro Wrestling Reflections page.
I put in the work in it. Yes, I put in the work in it.
So listen, wrestling figures will do what they call a 2-in-1. Above me, I'm not pulling it down, is Jim the Annabelle Neidhart dressed up in the high energy outfit they wore. The new foundation, and then that turned into high energy, right? So he's wearing that DC cab looking shit with the blue hammer pants, but you can take his head off.
Yeah, he had the navy blue checker one, and Owen Hart had the gold checker one.
Yes. So if you take off the jacket, the pants, and the head, you can put on a masked head, and he becomes Who from when he was in WCW. Remember that? Who?
That Who character was in WWF in '96.
It was?
Yeah.
I did not know that. So that's a 2-in-1. And I don't know where the other ones are, but I bought this figure. Who is that?
Kurt Hennig.
Yes. But it's a 2-in-1. In the same package, they put the singlet. So when you put on the singlet, he becomes
Mr. Perfect.
So it's a 2-in-1. So now I had the same figure twice. But the reason I bought it was to get another AWA belt. Because these belts, you can, if you say you wanted to buy a toy belt, say you want to make your own little version of you as an action figure and you want a belt, these belts sell for $15, $20, $30 each. That Mr. Perfect that I got with the singlet, it was $6.99 on clearance. I'm like, I'd pay more for that for the belt on eBay. So I got a second AWA belt. I don't even know what I did with it. Oh, I put it on Hogan, the What If. That was the What If picture. So now I got this other Perfect because I'm creating a custom of me. Don't worry, this is just a prototype. I haven't changed the gear.
Okay.
So I'm going to change these legs, the bottom, with the Mr. Perfect boots. So I have white boots. Paint these shorts red, and the NWO shirt because it's Kevin Owens' beer belly, and I can't find a better body.
Wait, do you got a Just Incredible head?
No, but look at the head I got.
Oh, that's Paul Ellering.
Yeah, and I might not use Paul Ellering. I might use.
I guess that's the closest to you.
Yep. The one of my other figure of me is those twin brothers.
Ron and Don Harris.
Yes. But I might use this head and shave off the beard. Also, thank you. This is a basic figure. Doesn't have the same articulation, right? They're kind of terrible. And then you have. Here you go. I'll use your boy, RVD. He bends at the chest too, right? And then the arms have better articulation. The feet do all that. Those feet bend too. So this is elite. This is basic. So the other day I say to my friend Jeff, I'm all done with basics except for Sal Ruka. I got to get Sal Ruka.
You want the elites?
Yes, because the elites are just better figures. The basics are so terrible. Like, for example, see R. Van Dam? He can do that little splits that he does. Not the basics, just straight up and down like Barbies. But the new basics, they do have the splits. But look what I happened to stumble across. And my original Hall of Fame is all basics. This is probably one of the nicest figures I've ever seen. And the little bonnet comes off. He didn't come with no glasses. And I use this belt is from an old WCW Toy Biz toy. So Hogan's in my other Hall of Fame now with his NWA World title. And I just knocked over the Machine Guns and Brian Pillman. But that's it for toys this week. I just figured I'd do that for Ray, who doesn't deserve it because he's a sore winner. Even when he's not even winning. So I guess that still makes him a sore loser.
No, you could call him a sore winner, but he's passionate. That's his passion, to be a sore winner. So with that being said, now let's get into what we do best here and try to change history for the better or for the worse. We don't know, but this is going to be a different kind of what if, TW, because most of the other what ifs, we just talk about the history, talk about the person, and we kind of like do a little bit fantasy booking. But I don't know if we can fantasy book this one because again, we are going to try to hypothetically see if we can keep him going into this particular organization. And that is, what if Paul Heyman, the man, Are you a Paul Heyman guy, TW? Because I'm a Paul Heyman guy. I'm a Paul Heyman fan.
I'm a Paul E. Dangerously guy, but I appreciate Paul Heyman, the man.
Okay. So with that being said, we are going to do a what if special. Reflectionites. What if Paul Heyman had the creative control for TNA Impact Wrestling in the 2010s? And TW, before we get into it and maybe fantasy booking, we have to talk about, the parameters that at least gives this what if a little credence, because this was very close to happening in 2010 or 2011. Paul Heyman was tired of WWE. Paul Heyman was tired of Vince McMahon. Paul Heyman was pissed off at Vince McMahon and WWE for what they did with ECW. And I agree with Paul Heyman a lot, because once you did the zombie on the debut episode of ECW in 2006, I was like, this is bullshit. But anyway, neither here nor there. But again, he was tired of the direction. He was tired of WWE using the ECW legacy as a whore. Plain and simple, as a whore. He wanted to make money off it. But again, they control everything. They bought the IP rights. They bought everything. So Vince McMahon had every right to do it, but again, Paul Heyman felt like that was his baby, and Vince was turning his baby into a whore. But anyway, again, he got fired, or he didn't renew his contract. I forget the logistics, but again, he was not in the wrestling business in 2009 or 2010 and 2011. And what was going on during that time, Reflectionites? Dixie Carter, Panda Energy, and Spike Television were making that big push. They wanted to take that little engine they could, TNA Wrestling, into the mainstream. So Dixie Carter and Panda Energy got certain people. They got Hulk Hogan involved. They got Eric Bischoff involved. But they were making another phone call, and they pursued this man, Paul Heyman, religiously for a couple of months. He kind of dismissed it. But then, people in TNA Wrestling at the time who were ECW originals, excuse me, like Tommy Dreamer and the Dudley Boys per se, said, "Are you stupid? Pick up the phone. Let Dixie talk to Dixie. She's a passionate wrestling aficionado. She's a passionate fan. She wants to help TNA grow. What are you going to lose if you don't at least pick up the phone and see what they are going to offer?"
Right.
So he picked up the phone, Reflectionites, and they talked business. And they were offering him that creative freedom. They were offering him that creative control, but also they offered him stocks, which was very intriguing to Paul Heyman, because if he had stock options within Spike Television or Panda Energy or something like that, I think he would have took the deal. But there was one hiccup with it not becoming a reality, Reflectionites. The only way that Paul Heyman was going to come into TNA Wrestling, and Dixie was not behind this, Spike Television was not behind this, and Panda Energy was not behind this, TW, was Paul Heyman said, my vision was to get the young guys over. It was going to be an exclusive to the young guys and exclusive to maybe the released WWF wrestlers, the young guys that did not get a chance over in their ECWs and, the main events and shit like that. So he was going to bring them here and give them that platform. But the problem with that is Paul Heyman said, the legends have got to go. You did your thing, but I need the young guys to get over. So at that time, again, he did not want Hogan on television. He did not want Nash on television and shit like that. So, before we get into
probably didn't want the Dudleys and Tommy Dreamer on television.
Well, we'll talk about that, because I kind of disagree with that, but neither here nor there. But TW, what say you about this? Because again, this is a what if that could have happened. And Paul Heyman had his kind of, direction that he wanted to go. And of course, Spike Television had their direction, because again, Spike Television was pumping a lot of money for Hogan and pumping a lot of money for Eric Bischoff. So they wanted to make that national push, but their, let's just say, vision, you wanted to have known names. So this way people can turn the channel to Spike Television. They were afraid to just give it to the young guys. So what say you, TW, about the whole
it's
scenario?
Two things. It's one, you might be right about not getting rid of the Dudleys and Tommy Dreamer, because maybe he thinks not legends, without insulting them. But he had a list of about 10 wrestlers, he said. Hall, Nash, I don't know if he said Hall, but Nash, Hogan, Sting.
Uh-huh.
He must have said the Dudleys, man, because he rattled off 10 people. And the first thing he says is, And unfortunately, a lot of my friends would be.
Well, it would have been Hall, Nash at that time, Hogan, Booker T, Scott Steiner. I can name that. That's the names I could have. Maybe Jeff Jarrett, but that'd be a little bit funky here. But I'm just giving you a couple of names, just as hypotheticals. Go ahead.
If he's saying guys that were famous already on WCW or WWE, then that would be Jarrett, and that would be Bischoff, and that would be not necessarily. Well, it would be the Dudleys, because the fucking Dudleys were the TLC guys. So Dreamer maybe not, but the Dudleys are fucking absolute legends by this point, right?
Yeah.
People called them the second coming of the Road Warriors because they were ECW, WWE, and TNA tag team champions. But so, and the other thing is he wasn't necessarily saying the legends were all done. What he was saying is, because Dixie and Panda were like, we don't want to get rid of the old guys. And he's like, you don't understand. They're all going to leave you at some point, either by going back to WWE like Christian, or just being done and just retiring, right? But you're banking on all these guys, and nobody's watching your product. So he's looking at like the new broom clean sweep is the saying they say in sports when a new coach comes in. But that's where I love his ambition, but I don't think getting rid of the 5 or 6 guys that people might be flipping through their channels and recognize and leave on is the solution. I think you got to keep, like, there's no way you let go of Angle, right? Like why would you let go of Angle and Christian at that point either, if Christian was still there? Because those guys, Christian was the guy that started it going for them. Once he went there, that's when Rhino followed and Angle followed and all these guys followed, because Christian showed that you can go there and still make a living. Like, that's probably what a lot of those guys were afraid of. Like, if I go there, I might not be happy in WWE, but at least I'm paying my rent. You know what I mean? Like right. Today you get released, you're getting 500-600. I don't even know where they have indie shows anymore. And there's about 15 indie promotions in Detroit, and I think they all draw 40 people. So I don't know where these indies guys are getting this money, but maybe it's GCW, maybe it's that
MLW.
MLW. What's that Japanese one? That always
New Japan.
Not the New Japan. It's small. Dragon Gate. Is that what it's called?
It's either Dragon Gate or Noah.
Dragon Gate's the one that some guys around here would do, because whenever the pay-per-view is in, you know, the WWE or the WrestleMania, wherever that's at, there's a Dragon Gate show. And if they have a SummerSlam here, there's a Dragon Gate show, a Ring of Honor show, all that. But you know, like all these guys that just got released, everybody's not getting signed by AEW. But back then, TNA, that was it, man. You went to TNA, you went to Indies, or you went and got a job managing a Target like your boy Shane Douglas. One of the three. That's what you were doing in 2010.
It's a funny situation here because, again, it was so close that all he had to do was sign it on the dotted line. But again, he had his vision. And one of the things, Reflectionites, with the vision was that people assume that Paul Heyman, well, that too, but Paul Heyman was going to retread the ECW kind of like stigma. Like TW's always said, until he saw the product, till the professor saw him the light. He was like on the dark side, but I was like, you know, I was Obi-Wan. I was Yoda trying to teach him the light of ECW. But Paul Heyman even said that the ECW kind of style was dying. So what was going on in the indies, because Paul Heyman doesn't get a lot of credit because he keeps his nose to the grinder, TW. Like, he looks at the indie promotions. He looks at those next potential stars, you know, developmentals and stuff like that. Ohio Valley Wrestling, Florida Championship Wrestling, before NXT was a thing. So he always looks at what's the next guy coming up. So what was the thing that was getting a lot of buzz during the 2000s into 2010? Ring of Honor. And what was that style? And that style was a little bit of like, you know, sports-oriented entertainment. Not sports entertainment TV, but you understand what I'm saying. Sports in
real sport.
And then, of course,
fucking monkey spots.
Not a lot of monkey spots back then. It was kind of controlled monkey spots, but it was that American sports themed Reflectionites. But also, he wanted to bring in that Japanese strong style, so he was going to hybrid that. And of course, Paul Heyman said that one of the things he was going to do with his vision, TW, was kind of give it that MMA feel. And when I heard that, it was not going to be like, you know, he was not going to turn wrestling into UFC, But I think because of what you always kept saying, like what brought UFC to the masses was the Ultimate Fighter. So with the young guys that nobody knows, I think he was going to use that Ultimate Fighter aspect, give a human element to the young guys that he wants you to like invest in and stuff like that. What say you, TW, about that? Because I think it has legs, but I think it wasn't refined enough in my humble opinion.
Two things. You just actually gave me a second one because I had one and I was just going to be like, this was going to fail miserably for two reasons. One, let's just say it's 2010. I think you're safe with Hogan and Nash, but 2010, you get rid of Sting, you get rid of Angle, you get rid of Rhino, you get rid of WWE would absolutely have taken all of them and done a second chance at a fucking invasion angle. They'd probably take Hogan and Nash too, so that they had everybody that TNA got rid of. So you would have been sending those guys to the WWE. We would have got Sting sooner. We would have got a healthier Sting. We would have got a Sting that had more than 2 matches in WWE or 3, whatever he had. So that wouldn't have helped him at all. You know, if people find out all the TNA guys in WWE, you got all the WWE guys who don't know there is other wrestling, you know, because there's the fans in the bubble who only think there's WWE. They won't even go looking for TNA because they'll think it's dead when all these TNA guys invade Monday Night Raw, right? And second,
you ever heard the joke from Kevin Nash about TNA wrestling? Like when he was like wrestling, you know, part time here or there between like 2006 and 2011 ish. He was at the airport going to Orlando, and one of the people, you know, that recognized, you know, they said Big Daddy Cool or Big Sexy and shit like that. Right. And then, you know, he says, "What's up?" And then one of the fans asked him, "Are you still retired? I haven't seen you wrestling." And he's like, "I wrestle every Thursday on TNA." And then said, "What's TNA?" He even said that. I'm just saying that was a joke. But go ahead, TW.
But it's probably legit. But he's also kind of a dick, so he might have made the story up because he's bitter at them too. But the other thing, and this is what I thought he was alluding to, if you want proof that an MMA style wrestling show doesn't work, all you have to do is look at WWE Underground, and every time NXT has Lola Vice in some dumbass match where they take the poles and the fucking ropes off and they just wrestle it's fucking boring. It is not good at all. The only way you make it good is by making it a shoot. You make it a shoot, you get a Bart Gunn for a couple weeks before Butterbean ends his career, right? Because the second a guy rises above that fucking crazy format, and then you put him in there with someone real, like say they did it again, and then for your reward you get fucking Conor McGregor to fucking wrestle.
But that's why I think he keeps saying MMA style, but I keep thinking it's the MMA
I like what you're
presentation.
saying. If he was going to do, especially because he talked about 2 hours of TV a week or maybe more, if he could get an hour to do a what was the WWE show with the Legends on Legends House? If he could get a show to spotlight Bobby Roode and all those guys, unscripted. If he could have got an unscripted for TNA, but still kayfabe it a little bit, and have people like I seen a clip over the weekend of maybe you'll tell me what it is, but when I was done watching it, I was like, that was 100% a work. It was at the Performance Center. And that was a work. That was an old NXT thing. And Grayson Waller. And the reason I say it was a work because it looked exactly like whenever somebody attacked somebody in an actual Monday Night Raw, and they weren't really punching; they were going for takedowns and people holding them back, and then one gets away. If it was a real fight, you're not getting away from the people holding you back. But if they did stuff like that, I swear to you, I had no interest in the MMA at all. And particularly because I thought it was going to be what put WWE out of business was when I watched it. I'm like, Mickey Dole's watching. I'm like, dude, why would you watch this, man? I go, this right here, if people watch WWE because they think it's real, they're going to stop watching it when they start watching this. But the difference is, and I think you watch MMA, you know, I think I told you my favorite MMA fight of all time is not a heavyweight fight, you know? It certainly isn't Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. I'm still mad about that. But my favorite MMA fight of all time is Roger Huerta versus Clay Guida, where in the 5th round, Clay Guida is just soaking wet in his own blood. And Roger Huerta is just such a fucking good human being, man. I seen him beat the shit out of this giant black dude for hitting a girl, and then he got arrested for it. But I don't give a shit. That dude had it coming after he hit a girl. But anyways, the last 30 seconds, and you know light heavyweights don't knock each other out, right? That's a tap out or a fucking points. They went straight up windmill punching each other. No defense, just fucking Ken Shamrock hitting in the head by a chair by The Rock 100 times. That's what it looked like. And then they fucking collapsed in each other's arms, hugged each other, and Huerta won by decision. But he was already going to win. And Clay's like, fuck it. The only thing I can do is knock him out at this point, or at least knock him down to where they call it Saved by the Bell kind of thing. And it was awesome. And so the thing about MMA is people think it's all like me with the ECW thinking it's all one thing. It's not. You have MMA fights that are all fucking, that you guys are just trying to submit each other. That will put you to sleep. Or you have the guys that just go toe to toe, and then someone just out of nowhere kicks a motherfucker in the head and puts him to sleep. Like, well, remember the big guy coming to UFC, and in his first fight, Gabriel Gonzaga just fucking sent him packing. Mirko Krokop. He was Bart Gunn versus Butterbean, and the wrong guy won. So
that's why. But that's why I'm saying, like, I think the MMA style, he's saying, like, you can't do it all because you still got to showcase. That's why I said that.
But I'm saying there is no like most WWE or most AEW wrestling matches look the same. There's different spots, there's different submission holds, but it's still the bell rings. They fucking fly around in some spots.
That's one of the things that Paul Heyman always had a conscience about, even in ECW. He wanted to give you a variety of different things.
So in order to imitate MMA, you're gonna have to have MMA submission guys. That's the karate, taekwondo, and all. Then you're gonna have MMA wrestlers, and then there's MMA boxers. So you got a lot of variety. And then if you do it right, you can have, holy shit, a wrestler versus a boxer. We're going to find out who wins that. You know what I mean? So there's potential for it. But if you do it like that WWF Underground or the NXT stealing the Underground, no chance. Especially if every match is like that. It's the six-sided ring, I think, did way more damage to that brand than it helped. People still bitch about it to this day. Wrestlers, not just fans, wrestlers still bitch about it.
Your man AJ Styles hated it. So
Sting hated it. AJ hated it. Angle hated it. I hated it. Still hate it. I just thought.
Well, AJ hated it because it hurt his body, but I think he loved it for the presentation. I think
it looked great, but then you got to do spots, and it throws off your. I think I told you when I wrestled for Les Thatcher in Kentucky, the ring was 20 by 20. I never wrestled in a 20 by 20. So when I got whipped to the ropes, it would be 1-2 bump. I got whipped to the ropes. 1, 2, 3. Where the fuck is he? Because you can't see him because of the lights and the fucking white kid.
Oh shit! I lost my count.
Dude, it's such a difference. And when you that 6-sided ring sounds like it would be bigger. It made it smaller. And remember when Sting would do the Stinger Splash? He'd have to do it on a crazy angle because there weren't just two corners that went like that. They did like a Y flux capacitor at the end.
He had to do a perpendicular splash.
Yeah,
I get it. So with that being said, TW, let me ask you this, because this is the way I'll go with this, and then you go with this. Now we're going into hypotheticals with Paul Heyman, because I think we talked about the style and presentation. And like I said, I think from the MMA style, we kind of agree. He wanted a hybrid of things, even for wrestling. He wanted his aerial people, he wanted his ground and pound people, and then he wanted those shoot fight people too. So
and hardcore.
A little bit, but this is where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go first. We probably have a difference of opinion about who stays and who goes. I'm just going to say who stays in Paul Heyman's land that he can trust and he knows that he was going to get. Because there's one thing that Paul Heyman needed. He was going to need his anchor. He was going to need his flagship. And one of the things that Reflectionites we're going to use here is another what if on top of that. Daniel Bryan got fired from WWE for choking out Justin Roberts. So that was legit. And Paul Heyman, one of his first missions was to get Daniel Bryan signed to TNA, and that was going to be a coup to get Daniel Bryan on TNA television. So we're going to incorporate Daniel Bryan as his flagship. But I want to say this first, TW, and you can go with your ways. Now, remember, Daniel Bryan is coming to TNA. That's Paul Heyman's guy. So I want to say, let's say who's going to stay in Paul Heyman land. These are the names that I think that Paul Heyman would keep for this purpose. Number one is Kurt Angle. You know why Kurt Angle would stay? Because you got that match between Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan. You got to take advantage of that. That's the old guard and the young, catch shoot wrestler right there that Kurt Angle could get over. He's staying. Dudley's and Tommy Dreamer are staying for a different reason. Dudley's would be the anchor for the tag team division, just in case to get the Motor City Machine Guns over TW, to get the young, and remember Reflectionites, who was there in the 2010s? They weren't called the Young Bucks in TNA. They were called Generation Me. But I think Paul Heyman would be like, no. You guys are called the Young Bucks. You got over in the Indies as the Young Bucks. We're going to repackage you as the Young Bucks. So we're going to save the Young Bucks. So that's their job. They're going to get the young guys like that over. Tommy Dreamer would stay for a different purpose. He's going to be a writer. He's going to be a producer. He needed that right-hand man to take care of the day-to-day operations. Tommy Dreamer did that in ECW, and now Tommy Dreamer, with more years under his belt with WWE, day-to-days, and now TNA, Paul Heyman would let him be maybe lead producer, lead trainer, or some shit like that. He would have him gravitate more behind the scenes and maybe do some nostalgia. Those are the names that I think would stay. Everybody else it's a 6-7 thing.
Beer Money would stay.
No, that's the young people. Beer Money would stay.
You're saying the older. I don't know either.
Sting would go. I think Sting would go. I think Hogan would go. I think Hall and Nash would go.
Hogan would go away, because that's the funny thing about this is apparently Paul Heyman does not like Eric Bischoff, but they're trying to get Heyman in while Bischoff and Hogan are there.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going just because they're getting fired to be replaced by him. They're going whether they want to be or not. And I
think for that, Paul Heyman would be like, look, stay behind the scenes, talk to the young guys, get the young guy, teach them the knowledge.
Agents.
But I don't think they wanted him on TV a lot, just like Dixie wanted Hogan on TV. Because that's why
it was horrible. Yeah. He was a horrible actor when he was on TNA.
But Hogan's gone. Hall and Nash are gone off TV. Sting's gone. Nash is gone. Jeff Jarrett, Booker T, Scott Steiner. Those guys are gone. I'm just saying the ones that would stay. Well, he only was there like for a cup of coffee, but you get what I'm saying. I think the ones that would stay that are considered older or legends: Kurt Angle, Tommy Dreamer, and the Dudleys. That's four that I would say would stay.
Christian.
Well, he's gone. He already went back to WWE.
Oh, he had been. All right. Yeah. So here's the problem with the Bryan Daniels, whatever the fuck, Daniel Bryan. We're looking at it in 2026, Daniel Bryan eyes. He was nobody when he got fired. But what I think happens when you get Daniel Bryan and everybody's like, that's awesome that they because he got scapegoated. That's the first fucking release. Come on back. That's the first hard truth was him, because everyone's like, how the fuck do you just told him to go out there and wreak havoc. He does it better than anyone else. And you fire him. But it was because of standards and practices, and the network was, you can't fucking choke someone out on TV. And it's like, it's fucking wrestling. If anything we learn, okay, we don't do that again. Right. But what I think happens is even though you're stocking the WWE pool, because they're absolutely getting Sting sooner, which makes me wish it happened, because then I would at least got a nice Sting run in WWE that he deserved.
So if Sting was released or was not needed for TNA in 2010, you know the match you're getting: Sting versus Undertaker.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
because you're getting a healthier, younger Sting, and so you got that. But while you're stocking the WWE's pond with these legends, you're also, when you bring Bryan Danielson over, he's basically, if Heyman does this and he brings Daniel Bryan, whatever the fuck his name is,
just call him Daniel Bryan. You want to call him Daniel Bryan?
I fucking don't know anymore. I was calling him Daniel Bryan just like I call him fucking Dean Ambrose to make the neckbeards mad, but I could care less. But if you get him, I think what potentially happens is, especially 2010, 2011, you're getting Daniel Bryan. You know who's coming there next? All those Ring of Honor guys that went to NXT. So you're preventing the black and gold from ever happening, because all those Undisputed Era guys are going where Daniel Bryan goes.
You're getting a bigger platform, Reflectionites, from the Ring of Honor days, because Brian Danielson would be there, Nigel McGuinness would be there,
Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will probably go there. Is El Generico?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're getting Undisputed Era. You're getting Roderick Strong, whether he was with them or not. He's because I know those guys.
Who has that eye? Paul Heyman has eye to see that and bring him there to give him the platform.
Do I think it would have succeeded? Probably not, because I watched NXT because I knew it was affiliated with WWE. Like, I'm like, all right, they're obviously investing in these guys. If they were TNA's flag bearers, it's a whole lot different. You know what I mean? Like, I might have watched it just to see who they were. I liked Adam Cole immediately. I don't know that I would have liked any of the other other three guys. Like, when I watched
Adam Cole in 2010 was a scrawny kid. I'm not gonna make no bones about it. Right. In the ROH side, but again, charisma, dude. What you're saying, because of YouTube, I got to see the Adam Cole from Pro Wrestling Guerrilla on the West Coast. Right. He was an arrogant prick.
Heel, yeah.
He was the heel there. You saw range with Kevin Steen or Kevin Owens, whatever you want to call him, on PWG side. You saw character and range or the heelish side of the Young Bucks on the PWG side. So all that, thanks to YouTube, as long as again, Paul Heyman can do it the right way. The Ultimate Fighter kind of presentation to give the human factor to these people, I think could work. You add the music element like he did in the 90s for ECW. He used grunge back in the 90s, whatever the music. I'm not talking about K-pop TV, so don't get me wrong on that one. But I'm just, whatever the music is popular.
That's what you were listening to when I signed on. You were listening to K-pop.
Well, the K-pop's better than hip-hop now. But anyway, neither here nor there. But I am saying that, and you could quote me. But anyway, whatever music was popular in 2010, that's what he would use to give that human interest. And you're right. I think he would. Well, the thing that would be a little bit sketchy to me, I think Paul Heyman, instead of raiding or plucking that ROH talent, I think he would want to have that pipeline relationship. He can bring some of those TNA guys back to Ring of Honor and stuff like that. He already knows from history, I don't want to raid talent because I can offer them more money. I want to be a partnership. I want to have a partnership so this way we can keep the wrestling business going. Do you agree with that or have a different take?
Yeah, he would be, I knock AEW a lot, but one of the things that I helped AEW out early is working with TNA and working with whichever one doesn't work with WWE, the CMLL or whatever.
CMLL, New Japan, and
New Japan. So him using all those people and using NWA, because, AEW was born from the All In event, which was basically an indie palooza with all, I think they had the girl group there, Shine or whatever it's called.
No, Britt Baker was at that initial All In. Tessa Blanchard was at that initial.
Yeah, but what's that wrestling that's all girls? It's Shine, right? Shine
or Stardom?
Stardom, that's the one. Shine might be Japan. That's Asuka and all that. But that's what, the problem with AEW is they hoarded everybody, which is the funny thing to me, because the fans shit on the WWE. You're keeping them captive. There's people under contract with AEW that haven't seen a fucking camera in 10 months or longer, and you're talking about someone else is holding people hostage? Shit. And then when they want out of their contract, you're going to add time on because they haven't been on TV for 10 months? That's your fault. That's not theirs. Britt Baker, free Britt Baker, damn it. Free her.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's go back to the Daniel Bryan thing, TW. Yes. Because like I said, I think Daniel Bryan would be his flagship because, again, that's Daniel Bryan at his peak. Had great wrestling matches, wrestled 45, 60 minutes against Nigel McGuinness.
Pre-concussions.
Pre-concussions too, pre-neck injuries and shit like that. But with that being said, what's the best way? Because I think you have to take advantage of Daniel Bryan versus Kurt Angle. You have to, like I said, what's the best way to introduce Daniel Bryan against Kurt Angle, in your humble opinion? Who's the heel here? And
the heel.
No. This is why I'm saying that, because you know the funny way to introduce Daniel Bryan, in my humble opinion. I don't know if you will agree to this, but I just thought of this off the top. You know how, like you said about standards and practices of what he did against Justin Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually flip it. I would give Daniel Bryan the heel move. I want to introduce Daniel Bryan against Kurt Angle that way. Choke him out like that. The same way he did to Justin Roberts.
The last time you saw him on WWE TV is how the first time you see him on TNA. I would agree with that. But that would be my backup plan. What I would do first.
Go ahead.
Just bear with me before you fucking shit on it, because this is a great
I'm not
idea.
Gonna shit on. It's your idea.
Before would have been so awesome.
What if it
you
has
have
no
Kurt
wrong
Angle
answer?
in the ring, just cocky as shit, and you just tell him, "Fucking none of you guys are worthy of me." And fuck you guys. Nobody's gonna come out of here that's worth a damn. And then you have Daniel Bryan run out of there, and you get in his face, and he flexes up on him. He goes, "Who the hell are you?" He goes, "What do you got that makes you think that you can hang with Kurt Angle?" And then listen, Bryan Danielson goes, "I've got ruthless aggression," and then he fucking Angle slams him. That would be great. And then does this, because I saw a rapper do that one. Just does this right over him, and then leaves, and then everyone's gonna love him.
That'd be funny too. I mean, you want to copy the John Cena moment, but everybody
no one's ever done that. No one's ever. That's I'm making it up right now. That's the way you do it.
No, because it could work both ways. Because what you're doing there, I have no problem with that. Because again, just like you said, what is TNA? What is TNA? How can I watch it? But if you do something that people can remember, and Ruthless Aggression was a couple of years prior to 2010, that's like 2003. That's 7 years. People got a long memory, TW. I would go with that too, but I'm just thinking going with
I was being facetious, but if you're gonna do it for real, you have it look like he's gonna say Ruthless Aggression, and you have him say something else. Like WCW
it's not Ruthless Aggression. He would be like, "I'm crossing the line," and can still do the same shit.
Or he can say, I'm total nonstop action. That's what I got. Whatever. Something but like the WCW, there's two things that were not done on purpose that both became slogans. The first one was somebody, I don't even remember if it was, I don't think it was Hall or Nash. It was someone before that, or someone right after that. Someone they were like, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "I heard this is where the big boys play." And then boom, it was just someone saying something off the cuff, and then it became their slogan. The other was when Hulk Hogan said, "Brother, you can call this the New World Order." He didn't mean it to name them. He was just saying it was going to be a new world from now on. And they were like, "Fuck yeah, that." And then Austin 316, obviously, he thought he was saying it once in response to Jake, and it's lightning in a bottle. And
magic happens when you don't plan it. It just happens organically.
When you're not forcing it.
So with that being said, TW, let's go with another scenario here. Let's talk about the tag team division. So, again, there's no wrong answers, but like I said, I think Dudley Boys would stay to get the next guys over, and that's Generation Me or Young Bucks. That would be Beer Money. That would be who else? You had the British Invasion. They had a good tag team division, and all that stuff. So TW, who would benefit in the 2010s if you remember the TNA roster? I'll give you as much names as I can remember too from the tag team division. Who would benefit more under the Paul Heyman vision of TNA?
Oh, absolutely, Daniel Bryan, for one.
But he doesn't have a tag team partner. I'm just saying, who would benefit?
You said who would benefit. You didn't say tag team. Tag team, I would think it would be the Young Bucks. Because, believe it or not, you're going to be shocked to hear this. When I saw them as Generation Me, I believe they were wrestling the Machine Guns. But I remember not liking them.
They had a 2 out of 3 falls match on a Thursday Night Impact or something.
But I remember not liking them, but for 2 reasons.
Why?
One, they were wrestling Sabin and Shelley, who I've known since they started. So
he was a homer. He was a homer for one.
Homing, yeah, right. But I'm also like watching it as the critic. Like, I hope they're not just fucking jobbing these guys out because these are the new it. And then I looked at them like the 2 of them together don't weigh Sabin. Like you made the little guys look big. But the second reason I didn't like them, and this is the case for a lot of guys, I just admit it, very rarely, but I didn't like them because I wasn't supposed to like them. They did their job. They were cocky heels, and they made me not like them. If they looked the part that they acted, I probably would have loved them. Like, I loved Rick Rude, and I loved Razor Ramon. I liked bad guys who backed up what they said. those dudes were little coward heels acting like monster heels, and they did cool shit.
It didn't look the picture. I get you. They're 185 soaking wet, and I can't
But
be intimidated.
that was the Homer guy who was looking at that.
Okay.
But what they were doing and saying also made me not like them. It wouldn't matter who they wrestled. I've been like, all right, let's see somebody get these guys. Like, that's the thing I appreciate now. It took a long time to get here. I like that I can watch wrestling and just look at it. And, like, I think a lot of people think they like this because of the Attitude Era, but I don't think – I think at the end of the day, people want good guy versus bad guy. There's different guys that we think are good and other guys think are bad and blah, blah, blah. The criteria for good guy, bad guy is out the window. But I like when you have an absolute, for sure, these are the heels and these are the babies. Even if I'm cheering for the heels, if they lose in a way that advances the baby faces, at least I know that's how it's supposed to be. Now, if the baby faces win and they just like, what the fuck? Obafemi beating those two.
Let me say
Garzaria, whatever the fuck.
The Garza brothers. Let me say this about the Young Bucks, especially in 2010 when I saw them as Generation Me, and why I didn't like them. And the only reason I didn't like them, not because of whatever, the first reason I didn't like them, and probably the main reason, was they just wrestled too fast. And I always said to people,
and it looks like Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, it was so choreographed and so coordinated like that. And all that. No, but they've they've slowed down a little bit. They've cut it down. They went from 10 to maybe 8.5, but it's still fast. But I always kept saying, no, they just wrestle too fast. If they slow down and give me more character, maybe I could take them seriously. That's why I kind of liked them when they did their Bullet Club Elite stuff in New Japan, because you could see them being dicks and pricks. So, and then the matches, I kind of like, it didn't bother me that they were going so fast, because I saw the New Japan character, which we didn't get in TNA during that 2010s. But I think Paul Heyman, and I agree with you, I think the Young Bucks, if Paul Heyman would say, you ain't Generation Me, that's a stupid name. Right. You're going to be the Young Bucks. We're going to, we'll find a way to get that name over. Give them that human. Again, we've seen enough human peace stories of the Young Bucks with their families, their wives, their children, and how they came up. He could have done that with them, and they could have been the pillars of that tag team division in the 2010s. Let me ask you another question here, because again, I think this is a no-brainer, and I just want to get your opinion on this. Again, Paul Heyman always kept talking about the MMA style. Do you think, and I don't know if Paul Heyman even said this, I don't even know if I have any quotes on this, but maybe it's a Mandela effect. Do you think there's a chance he would have kept the 6-sided ring permanently, or would he have kind of like did a switch, did the 18 by 18 or 20 by 20, but maybe for pay-per-views went to 6-sided, or maybe once in a blue moon?
I think the perfect thing would have been, because I was starting to say this earlier, that whatever that fucking X Division match was with the Dome,
Ultimate X, yeah.
I think you bring it back for Ultimate X. It gives it credence for having it. And you know what I mean? Like, you're not just going to throw the damn ring away. And if they have multiples, whatever, I think you set up a school for sure and put that dumbass ring in one of the schools. But yeah, you bring it back for Ultimate X, and you don't just have one match. You make everyone do it. So it's kind of like, it's like what they did with Lockdown. They had a whole pay-per-view in the cage of the Lockdown. Exactly. But like every 80s feud, whether it be NWA or WWF or AWA, I don't know if I've ever seen them in AWA, but I know they did it in fucking UWF and World Class. Sure, Lawler did it. But every fucking blow off to a feud ends in a steel cage, especially if it's the Heenan family or the Horsemen involved. You're putting the cage up to keep other people out so that it's fair. Dusty versus Luger versus Nikita, all those matches. And by the way, that was some great storytelling that I didn't get to touch on when we talked about. Luger lost the belt to Dusty the same way he won it from Nikita, from not wanting to beat Dusty the way he beat Nikita. That's good. Like callbacks, you know what I mean? It's good callbacks, and I think that's missing in everything. When the biggest thing in wrestling right now is arguably Danhausen, it's time to get back to basics. I mean, I love Danhausen, don't get me wrong, But that's what I see the most hype coming from him. People need to do some more shit, and I do want AEW to succeed, so I don't want them to just take everybody they can, because then they're gonna.
But you know why Danhausen's over? Because he's got creative freedom to make sure that his
and it works,
and it's working. That's what it is.
Yeah, and hopefully,
and he's in an organization that welcomes it more than the other side.
But you want to know? You know why I think he particularly works, and I'm not trying to fucking shit on Obafemi because this is my second time. Danhausen grew up watching wrestling. It's obvious. He's a wrestling fan who became a wrestler. The WWE is so riddled with people that had nothing to do with wrestling, but that stupid NIL bullshit. They just grab people from other sports. And Sol Roca, awesome. She's adapted well. You would never know it, that she was plucked from a college gymnastics team or whatever it was. Oba probably needs every move laid out for him. He needs every word that he's saying on the promo laid out for him. That's why they're so short, because he probably doesn't do well with remembering them. But then you got guys like, Kenny Omega. Look at that. I'm purposely trying to think of AEW guys. Kenny Omega, or even that fucking idiot, Adam Page, who when they're talking from a place of passion. Kenny Omega does it really, really well and sticks to the theme. The other idiot does it well and then goes off the rails and ruins the company. But he has it if he doesn't stray and, as they say, go into business for yourself. If he just stuck to what... That's why I think he was so over in the beginning, was Adam Page did it the right way. But the second Punk got there, he just fucking... He's garbage now. He's absolutely garbage now. He looks like a male Karen sissy from
going back into the what if scenario with Paul Heyman again, with the young guys that again, and I'll say this, your guys, the Motor City Machine Guns, they could talk with passion, but can I believe them? Right. Young Bucks were still trying to hone in on their character. And again, we already talked about hypothetically Reflectionites. He would have probably plucked or had a relationship with a Ring of Honor that you could bring up the Adam Coles, the Kyle O'Reillys, the Roddy Strongs and stuff like that, and Davey Richards a couple of years even before that. So with that being said, these guys, TW, and let's be fair here, they couldn't talk. They could wrestle, they couldn't talk, and that's the challenge I have with the MMA style. You can do a lot of matches, and this is what AEW does with their identity. It's some people can talk, and well, we know MJF is the best talker in AEW, hands down. But you just said like Kenny Omega and Adam Page, they talk with passion, but they all say the same shit. That's not.
They all wrestle the same match too. I know.
Right. So let's go back into the
stuff. Is the problem?
No, but let's go back into the realities of the 2010s. Like I said, you agree with me. These guys couldn't talk, but they could wrestle their ass off. So how can you make it entertaining for 2 hours, TW? What do you do with these guys? How does it work? Because again, like I said, you
do pre-tapes, so they fucking do it over and over again until they get it right. And what that'll do is they'll fucking doing it over and over again, so they're going to get better. So I would assume you did this as a kid, because I know I did it as a kid before I even knew I wanted to be a wrestler. Once I knew I wanted to be a wrestler by high school, I did it all the fucking time. If I'm driving in a car, if I'm brushing my teeth, if I'm washing my hands, if I'm wiping my ass, if there's a mirror in front of me, I'm cutting a promo. And that's how you get good at it. You just drive down the road and you cut promos. To this day, because I drive for a living. Well, I fix furniture for a living, but I drive to do it. I drive for my person. I believe in my car, I cut promos on other drivers in my head. I think it's the reason I don't pull my car over, yank a motherfucker out of his car, and just fight to the death. It's because I'm popping myself in the car by cutting promos on these fucking people. But I think you got your Sol Rucas, who isn't a good talker, unless it's a nice little angle with Zaria or with JC Jane, where there's something where she gets it. Like she's a girl and she's got a problem with another girl and she could just do that. But they probably do still write it for her. And the problem is, if you just always write for her, then you're never going to take the training wheels off. And then when you finally do, when she's in WWE, Raw or SmackDown, she's going to fucking flop when she tries to talk off the cuff. Like with a Becky Lynch or with a Charlotte Flair. Charlotte's not that good to me, but she's at least reactive. She's going to, you know, make you fuck up when your shit's a script.
But you're agreeing with me because you see the handicap in the 2010s. Because again, I'll flip it to ECW, because when he got the creative reign, that generation of wrestlers, TW, understood that you needed a little bit of a character. Look at the Raven character. He was Scotty Flamingo, but he had the sense to refine his character to a very dark, stoic person that was grunge heavy.
I think I saw him say this, or you told me, or somebody. The reason he did that, which is nuts, because I don't think anyone would associate it at all. He said the Rock and Roll Express dressed like the music of their day, so he was doing that to look like the music of their day.
Yeah,
and
like Nirvana and shit.
Nirvana,
like that.
And grunge, just Pearl Jam, Nirvana, any of it.
But again, that generation understood. Even Tommy Dreamer, who was so basic for the 2010s, he said, I gotta have a gimmick. I have to do something. Same thing with the Sandman. They had to find a gimmick. Even Shane Douglas had to find who he was himself. That's the problem I see. That's the handicap. Not only Reflectionites of the 2010 what if scenario here, because again, you have Daniel Bryan, who has the Yes gimmick is not even born yet, TW. Let's be real here. And all those young guys have not refined themselves. It's the same problem that we have in 2020, say TW and AEW. It's the same problem we have actually, well, not a lot in NXT, because there is a performance center and they try to get that character out of you. But you get what I'm saying. This generation and even the 2010s, it started so late, they're only one-dimensional because they can do a good match. But again, you got to have a reason for me to keep watching the television for 2 hours, TW. That's the problem we're having.
In a modern-day version of what you're saying. I think language, unfortunately, comes into play, too.
Okay.
You have two women signed with NXT at the same time.
Lesbians.
The neckbeards lose their shit because both of them had already wrestled for AEW not that long ago and then signed with WWE. To which I say, you're not making your case for what you think you're making it for. Because if they already were wrestling for AEW, then AEW should have fucking signed them. But they didn't. And they let them go. And they signed, and everyone's like, that's bullshit. You just were on an AEW paper. And you know who the two women are I'm talking about?
Blake Monroe and
Julia and Stephanie McClure. Right? And when they came there, Julia was the bigger deal. Stephanie came, and I didn't even know who she was, but I do remember hearing the name once they said McClure. And then right after that, Zarya came there, who I think was also kind of a big deal on the indies, right? Of the three, Zarya is the only one that speaks English fluently, or at least the best. And she got put with Sol Ruka and doesn't talk ever, right? So she's the least popular of the three. I think we'll agree with that, right?
Okay.
And now she's over as a heel, and she's probably, I think, going to be the biggest of the three when it's all said and done. But then Julia and Stephanie both go to the main roster fairly quick, right? Both winning the title. Julia goes to the main roster and has absolutely just fucking flopped because she can't talk. When she tries to, it's not good. And then she goes and wrestles, and all those people, they don't have a fucking clue who she is because a lot of these SmackDown goers aren't NXT watchers, right?
But the neckbeards that do remember Julia say she's not even wrestling 1/10 of what she does in Japan. So you're not even seeing that kind of
But that
shit.
audience doesn't give a fuck. That audience wants the character, not the fucking match or the AEW. Then you got Stephanie, who comes over, has that one fucking move that just fucking took off. But that girl speaks English better every week that she comes out and tries, right? And granted, she's going from Spanish to English, which is a lot easier than going from Japanese to fucking English or the other way around. But she's trying. And I think that she's kind of fallen a little bit. I don't think she's as over as she was when she first came up and won the title. But one, these can command the audience enough that they understand what she's saying. The other one, they put the fucking jobber girl with, who no one gives a shit. You've been better off putting her with Tiffany Stratton or someone that already had heat, You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Putting her with what's the girl that she's with? The fake Marlena
Kiana James.
Kiana James. God bless her, but she's nobody. So having her do the talking for Julia is doing nobody a service. It's not good. So and they put the belt on her twice, thinking that's going to get her over. It's not. And then her match doesn't even make it to WrestleMania. But Stephanie McClure, she can talk to the crowd and she can put on a good match. She, of the three, is rightfully so the biggest success story. Bizarria, I think, is going to pass both of them eventually because she has the look. She has a fucking awesome look. She looks like a girl road warrior, right? She probably looks like Heidenreich. And then she can wrestle and she can talk when they let her. She's got to get better at it. Do you know this about AJ Styles?
What about it?
After he was in the WWE for however long he was there, 6 months, year, whatever, he walked up.
He said he wished he would have went to NXT to learn the camera trick.
He said from now on, don't let anybody come straight here. Make them go through NXT because I wish I had, because this is different. It ain't the same. And that's the other thing people don't understand is you can be the star in AEW, come to WWE, and just flounder because you don't get it. There's certain guys that just get it no matter what. AJ's one of them, thankfully.
But again, like I said, in the 2000, we could correlate this back to Paul Heyman in the 2010s. The guys that he's trying to bring up are still one-dimensional, but you still got to have a little bit of character.
But you got the right guy to make them 2- and 3-dimensional is Paul Heyman.
There you go. That's a good
CM Punk. He rescued CM Punk. He probably would have got him to TNA in 2010 after the ECW flopped.
You know, that's funny. Let's go into that. Like, who would Paul Heyman try to like pluck out from WWE?
Absolutely, CM Punk. 100%.
CM Punk would be one.
Zack Ryder, maybe.
I think you could get Zack Ryder. I think you get Drew McIntyre in that young stage. Remember 3MB? They were floundering. You could actually go put 3MB and put them in TNA Reflectionites. They probably would have been a bigger deal. They would have had. They already have the character with them that sucks, but at least they can. You have a story. And they can splinter, they can do one-on-ones and shit like that. So it's a kind of funny situation here, TW. So with that being said, I don't think that, we got a lot of hypotheticals. I think you and I agree, Daniel Bryan against Kurt Angle had to happen.
I don't know if he's ready for it right away, but it had to lead to it.
But it's a coming out party for Daniel Bryan thanks to Kurt Angle. That's what it is. That's his job. We both agree that maybe the Young Bucks probably would flourish under Paul Heyman.
Weren't they feuding with the Hardys at first? It wasn't the Machine Guns, I don't think, right away. It was the Hardys versus Generation Me.
No, the Hardys were like, if Jeff Hardy was in WWE, Matt Hardy was in TNA, and vice versa and shit like that. They weren't that tag team, if you will.
So the Hardys and the Young Bucks never worked each other?
Not until Ring of Honor in the mid-2010s.
Oh, okay. Before they came back to that WrestleMania.
Right. They worked that program. So with that being said, TW, let's I guess we can close out because there's really nothing left. Let me ask you this. He takes the job in 2010. Do you think that Paul Heyman would eventually do like a lot of people, eventually come back to WWE with after all this stuff?
Yes, because I think the reason he didn't do it is because he knew deep down, no matter who goes there, no matter who's doing it, it's always going to be what it is. It's never going to be. He called it what it is, WWE Light. And you can switch it all you want. Changing it from WWE Light to its own thing takes 2 risks. One, people who already watch it might be watching it because it's WWE Light, and you run them off. And 2, people who are flipping through the channels and see it, and it's nothing like WWE, flip it off because they're like, the fuck is this? I'll give you an example. A show that I turned on, I was like, all right, because I think I had people that were there, friends were there. I think Jimmy V might even been at. When I turned on that MTV Wrestling Underground or whatever the fuck it was, it looked like a fucking Mad TV fucking skit. Everything
they were wrestling in that. It was that factory wrestling shit. Yeah, we did it. We did a show.
Not good. And I turned it off, and I was like, nah, never turn it back on. I think Teddy Hart was there. It felt like American Gladiator, but it was wrestling, is what it felt like. It felt like a TV show, not a wrestling show.
So this,
which, by the way,
what?
Did you hear about the new show? I saw the interview going around with Ron Swanson, but I watched the first episode today of Margot Has Money Problems.
The fuck is
Ron
that?
Swanson's her dad, and he's a pro wrestler. He's kind of in the first episode, but not. But I watched it because I want to see if they show the wrestling business in there.
Where is this available?
Apple TV. Michelle Pfeiffer's the mom from the greatest movie of all time. She
Grease
is
too.
the girl in search of the cool rider.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So with that being said, here's another question, TW, because I think you actually kind of answered it. Do you think with his vision, his MMA style, or whatever the case may be, and trying to bring these young guys over, what kind of effect would it have on Spike TV? What kind of effect would it have ratings-wise? Again, he's not going to overtake. He's not going to do the Eric Bischoff 83 weeks. We both can agree with that. But what kind of effect could his style have for the wrestling business? Because I think if it was successful enough, we wouldn't have an AEW. We wouldn't need it because Paul Heyman would have a very sustainable and stable organization treading along. What say you?
I don't think it would ever get to AEW's stature, but I also don't know if AEW's stature is even what AEW stature appears to be, because
define AEW stature. What do you mean?
So like AEW at some point we're almost getting 1 million viewers a week. Now they're 600,000, 500,000, right? Whatever it is. Okay. Sometimes I've heard it's dropped down to 300,000, right? So
that's Collision, but go ahead. I'm just giving you logistics.
That's what?
That's Collision, the 300,000.
Oh, okay. But what I'm saying is, at best it's stagnant. At worst, it's regressing, right? And so we don't really know how much of it is inflated because of how much money they have. We don't know if they're losing money at all. We ended up finding out about WCW for all their 83 weeks. The motherfuckers were bleeding money, and nobody cared about those 83 weeks. Time Warner, they were like, get this shit out of here. It's costing us money, because they hid the salaries of wrestlers in a Time Warner contract, which is why we didn't get Sting, the NWO, and Luger, and all those guys that were not WCW employees. So I don't think it's fair to compare it to AEW. Okay. Again, I want AEW to succeed, but I always wonder if it's even as successful as they claim it is. They just lost their toy deal. And I'm not surprised by that, because I collect toys my whole life, and AEW figures were either hard to find or the same figure was on the rack for years. You can still find a Nyla Rose. And that's not supposed to be there. There's a company supposed to clear out old to make room for new, and you barely ever saw new. Now they don't even have spots at Target or Walmart for AEW figures, and they're still putting them out for the rest of the year. So again, different things. I wonder what their merch sales are. I wonder all that stuff, And they came here the first 2 times they were at Little Caesars Arena. The last time they were at the Masonic Temple, which only holds
that's why they say the WWE machine is what they are. The machine. They understand marketing. They understand business. And these are wrestling companies that only understand get butts and seats. That's it. It's one dimensional.
But I think one of 2 things happens with Paul Heyman at the helm.
And what's that?
Worst case, it finally just dies. He tries that drastic change up and it just fails, and they just close the books, right? It is like, all right, we're good.
Okay.
Or TNA, since 2010 probably, even in the Hogan era and the Russo and all that, TNA does this shit. Like, it's fucking nothing watching it.
Peaks and valleys. We got you.
But their peak and their valley ain't that far apart either. It's 5,000 people are watching it, or nobody's watching it, right? And
to be fair, 1.2 million was watching weekly on TNA Wrestling in 2000.
Okay, so I'll use that number. So 1.5 every week. I think with Heyman there, immediately it drops down to 1 million, right? You got your million diehards, 500,000 are like, what the fuck is this, man? You've changed it too much. Okay. I'll give you an example. NXT 2.0. Fucking, I'd stop watching because it was not at black and gold no more. Now I think it might be better than ever, but they don't call it an era. I think they call it a new season. But I still think black and gold is the best wrestling era ever since I was a wrestler. And obviously the fucking 80s for you and me, Hulkamania, that run, UWF, NWA, that's the best. That's if I could fucking get my. Can you all right, Tom, you can wrestle in an 80s fucking venue or you can wrestle in an NFC venue. I'm wrestling in the 80s venue. I want to wrestle at the fucking Cotton Bowl with the WCCW crowd. I want to wrestle at fucking WrestleMania 3 with the Silverdome. I want to wrestle somewhere like that where everybody there is there to have nothing but a good time. There ain't no reason other than fucking I came here to watch wrestling. Now it's fucking who knows what the fucking motive is.
I hear you. I agree with that. So,
but
yeah,
I think he either flops and they shut the door
mm-hmm.
or he gets it to 1.5, maybe even to 2 million a week, and it just stays there from that point on. Like he levels it off to where that's.
Tell you one thing: TNA would love it today if it's 2 million viewers.
Yeah. So would AEW. So
yeah,
AEW would love it if it was 1.5.
Yeah, that too. So with that being said, we close on this What If edition because again, this was a very hypothetical show, and again, you couldn't really book it properly, TW. So we did a good job with this, and we stretched it here a little bit longer than even I anticipated.
We didn't necessarily book it, but we added to the roster and subtracted from the roster. We booked the roster.
Yeah, we booked the roster as best we could. So with that being said, we close on this show, and what we're gonna do next time, Reflectionites, TW. You know what? We're gonna do a spotlight with a little bit of a twist. I was thinking about this. You know how a while back we did like one of the greatest like returns and debuts in wrestling history.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a flip. We're gonna flip it around, TW. We're gonna do the greatest jumps or defections from one organization to another organization. We're gonna talk about Hogan jumping from AWA to WWF or WWF to WCW. You get where I'm going with this. The jumps, which were the best jumps in wrestling history and which was the afterthought jumps in wrestling history, Jeff Jarrett. But anyway, neither here nor there. But we're going to talk about that too. We could talk about, we're going to merge today with yesteryear. Are you ready for that? I'll give you some lists of the best jumps and defections in wrestling history.
I already know what number one is.
What's that? Hulk Hogan.
Fuck no.
Oh, Tony Atlas? Oh, Lex Luger?
Lex Luger.
Okay, well, we will talk about that as one of the greatest jumps and defections of wrestling lore. So with that being said, TW, give out those socials so we can get out of here.
All righty. The Pro Wrestling Coalition Network sponsors us at PWC Network at podbean.com. We can also find HAMIN Media Group at podbean.com, where you can go over there and send some well wishes for Ben to make a full recovery from his surgery and tell him how happy you are that he had a successful one. And then you can follow us on X at PW Reflection. You can follow Big Ray everywhere, and you'll find him making fun of teams that the Knicks didn't even play at Big Ray Hernandez all over. And every Wednesday live, he does the Next Level NXT Recap, Next Level podcast on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram and X at TommyWonder19, Snapchat #Wonder, Facebook.com/Tommy Wonder, and my other X and TikTok are at the Tommy Wonder. And you can find Big Vito and Noel at the Big Vito brand on TikTok.
And you can follow me on the X at PWSOPRF, that's PWSOPROF, or tell a friend to subscribe to, I guess you could say it's my YouTube channel, but it's not my YouTube channel. It is the Pro Wrestling Reflections YouTube channel. So click that link, youtube.com/@Pro Wrestling Reflection. That's the link, TW. Even though it's still my YouTube channel, it says Professor Cruz. But again, you got to have a hook. But anyway, neither here nor there. So youtube.com/@Pro Wrestling Reflection, or follow me on the Beast Blue Sky at pwsprf.bsky.social. And again, next week we're going to do greatest jumps or defections from one organization to another. So with that being said, I'm the professor. That's Mr. Wonderful, the solo idiot, Dr. Freaking Stein, and the undisputed, undeniable Detroit Rock City Universal Heavyweight Champion of the world. Well, that's the only title from Detroit that matters right now because all the Detroit teams suck this year. Tommy Wonder saying good night, and we'll see you next time here at the PWR podcast at the HAMIN Media Group at podbean.com. Peace. No closing thoughts? Nothing?
I was going to say, my name is Paul Heyman.
Oh, you could have.